Hey. All right. I heard a male voice. I'm like, who could that be? Ah,
Hi.
yes. Okay. Um, in this political spectrum, right? We got through gun control laws. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And if you want more laws, say no. If you say we have enough laws or don't want more laws, you say yes, right? Because that's the way it's worded. Okay. Kind of worded funny. All right. So let's move on to the next one. All right. Where's she at?
She's not quarantined.
I don't know.
Her mom got it.
Who got it?
Her mom.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
She doing okay?
Karen hasn't got it. I'd be surprised if she doesn't. Like if she did get it.
Is mom doing okay?
Mom?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm so sure. Aware.
I hope. She might even be here. Yeah, she's here.
Hi, Cameron.
Hey, Cameron, is your mom doing okay?
Is it your mom? I wasn't actually.
Yeah, my mom's doing good.
Okay, good. All right, well, hope to see you back soon. Okay, all right, hate speech. So now, the way I have this worded is allow hate speech. Now, I know that sounds funny, okay, but to do away with hate speech would obviously be limiting what you could and couldn't say, right? So, guys, one of the things when we learn about the First Amendment, right, we have freedom of religion, and there's two clauses, the Establishment and Free Exercise Clause. They just say in the Constitution or in the Bill of Rights, freedom of speech. They don't really explain it. You know what I mean? So this is something we tend to take pretty seriously in this country is our freedom of speech. But it's also, you have to recognize that freedom of speech also extends to what's called freedom of expression. Okay, so a really good example of this is flag burning. Okay, now obviously if any of you guys were ever in the Boy Scouts, you know the proper way to dispose of a flag is to burn it. Okay, but there's a ceremony with that, right? It's not done out of protest. It's not desecrating a flag. It's honoring the flag. Okay. Now, in this country, you're allowed to desecrate this, burn it in protest, and people do that, right? And some people really don't like when people do that. Okay. So you care, you know, you see yourself maybe as patriotic in a sense, in that you don't like to see people do that to our flag. Now, I might want to punch somebody in the nose for burning the American flag. But on the other hand, I die for the right to do so because that's what makes us free. Okay, the fact that you're allowed to really shows us that we are free. Okay, and I mean, you could pass a law that says it's against the law to burn this in protest. That law would be unconstitutional. You would literally have to pass a constitutional amendment. Now, I can't burn this in the classroom because that would put you in danger. Might ignite these sprinklers too, right? Okay? And Bishop Carroll may not want me to teach here if I did that too. You know what I mean? But I don't know, maybe they would. You don't have to worry about me doing that, okay? But the thing is, sometimes people say and express things that we disagree with. And really the fact of the matter is, the First Amendment doesn't say anything about your feelings. So you have the right to offend each other. You have the right to offend me. I have the right to offend you. The Constitution doesn't protect your feelings. Now, there are limits to speech. The proverbial, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, right? Because you cause a riot, you stampede, people get hurt, okay? So you can't incite a riot with speech. That's against the law. What about obscenity? Can I walk into a Walgreens and just start cussing up a storm? Is that against the law? It's free speech. Now, if Walgreens says, hey, excuse me, sir, would you please leave? Okay, you're bothering our customers. Now, if you don't leave, and they ask you to leave a private place, then you're trespassing. That's against the law, right? You know what I mean? So, yeah, you could do that. And as Christians, I hope that you don't go into Walgreens and start cussing up a storm, especially around women and children. Okay, well, okay, just about in front of children. Okay. And we try not as Christians to offend people, go around offending people. I know I try not to do that. I care about people, and I don't want to hurt your feelings, okay? But I got a right to. Now, here's the problem with hate speech, guys. Who gets to decide what is hate speech and what is not? Let me talk about Islam for a moment. You mind? Now, in some Islamic beliefs, they treat women as second-hand citizens. In some cultures, they don't allow you to read, go to school, leave the house, drive. Treated as property. Now, in this country, I think we're opposed to that sort of thing, right? We have women's liberation, yes? Huh? Yeah? Okay. So I think that part of Islam is ugly. I think it's awful the way they treat women. Now, does this make me Islamophobic? I just criticized Islam. In Canada, I could get in trouble for that. You understand? Because they have hate speech laws. When you criticize somebody else's religion, their race, their sexual orientation, their gender, that's against the law. Do you want it to be against the law in this country? Now, what I just told you about Islam. Did I lie? Or was I telling the truth? I did not lie. So you're going to put me in jail or fine me for telling the truth? Is that the society you want to live in? Now, guys, a lot of places where we start to see this take hold is on the college campus, okay, where they're trying to create a safe space for kids, for students, so that they can go to school without feeling threatened by somebody's different ideas that disagree with them. Now, of all the places on the planet you want open debate, it's on a college campus. How many guys have heard of Ben Shapiro? Okay. So Ben Shapiro is a commentator. Okay, he's a conservative commentator. He's Jewish. It's funny when you hear people call him, a white supremacist when he's Jewish, but that's funny. Okay, or anti-Semitic. You get that a lot. Trump gets called anti-Semitic when his daughter and son-in-law are Jewish, which is funny. But anyhow, and he moved the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, the capital, the religious capital of Jews. Anyhow, what was I talking about? Yeah. So when you guys go to college, you might have a college Democrats, a college Republicans. There's other organizations like Turning Point USA on college campuses. And so the college Republicans might invite Ben Shapiro to come talk to the student body, right? Now, if you don't want to hear Ben Shapiro, what do? You don't go to the thing. But instead, faculty members and student or body organizations and students in general are trying to get these speeches shut down because Ben Shapiro spews hate. Okay? Because he doesn't believe that there's more than two genders. That's hate, and we need to silence it. Not on our campus. It's interesting and hypocritical. It's the same people that run the campus today, that run the colleges, the professors, that were the students in the 1960s, that were having massive protests during the Vietnam War, and using their free speech to protest the Vietnam War and other causes. Now they're running the institutions and trying to stop free speech on those same campuses. Okay? Now, guys, I'm not going to be unbiased on this. I'm sorry. I believe too much in the First Amendment and the greatness of this country, and the fact that we should not live in fear for what we say. Now, if you work for ESPN, okay, or you work for Bishop Carroll High School, you work for a teacher, for a school, and you say something that is deemed offensive, could you lose your job for that? Yes. Okay. Is that what we want? To cancel people for saying something that's offensive? Maybe. But who gets to decide what is offensive and what is not? What is hate and what is not? Because in Canada, they would say what I said about Islam is hate speech. So, I don't know. I don't want to live in fear of opening my mouth and saying the wrong thing and having to face the government because of it. You know a little bit about that. Because in China, you have to be careful what you say. Would you agree with that? I mean, yeah, I mean, you're not going to come out and be really critical of the CCP, are you? No, you're not. Yeah, you can't just come out and protest the government, okay? We have protests against our government all the time, you know? And we call our leaders all kinds of things, don't we? Both sides. They used to put people in jail for stuff like that. That's why they put it in there. Guys, the freedom of the press is in the First Amendment because people were criticizing their state governments the early years of this country, and they were putting them in jail. And so they had to write it in there, freedom of the press, so that wouldn't happen. Okay? All right, you guys decide. You can figure out how that's written, right? So if you want free speech to remain, even if it's hateful, say yes. If you would like to see people be punished for hateful speech against religion, sex, sexual orientation, race, and so forth, then say no. Okay? All right. Now, let's talk about building a wall on the southern border. But before we do that, guys, I want to just talk about immigration. I'm going to take a few minutes and just talk immigration. Okay? Because I want to give you some context. All right? Now, obviously, we have legal immigration and we have illegal immigration. Okay? So, with legal immigration, we immigrate close to like 1 million people a year through the legal process. All right? Illegal immigration tends to be much higher than that during some time. Okay? In 2006, when then candidate Trump was running for president, was the first thing he talked about when he announced he was running for president. Immigration. Okay? And he won. That was probably his biggest issue. Okay? Now, the number of people that are in this country illegally, we don't know for sure. Estimates between 11, I've heard estimates as high as 20 million. Okay? Most people say between 11 and 13 million people here that are undocumented. Okay? Now, what most people don't know is that about 40% of those millions are on visa overstays. Okay? So you're here on a visa, right, to go to school. Okay? So does that take you through your senior year? Do you get college too? No. You have to get it renewed? Okay. You got a chance to get that renewed? Okay. So let's say you don't get it renewed, okay? And then you just like move to Chicago. And, you know, you're in the country illegally, right? And that's what people do. They just stay. They overstay their visas, okay? And then the other 60% generally come across our borders, okay, without permission, all right? Now, there are some economic advantages to illegal immigration, economically for us, especially as consumers. So when you guys go to the grocery store and you buy fruit and vegetables, okay, a lot of those farms you'll find on the West Coast in California and so forth, they grow lettuce and tomatoes and stuff like that and ship them all over the country. Those farms need workers. And a lot of times you'll get migrant workers that will come up, work, harvest the crops, and then go back to Mexico. Some of those people are doing it legally. Some of those people are doing it illegally. Okay, but the thing is, those people are doing it for less of a wage than the average American would be willing to do. You understand? Same thing as the meat packing plants in Dodge City and in western Kansas. Okay? Who wants to work in a meat packing plant? Raise your hand. I got a job for you. Doesn't pay very well. Working conditions are pretty sick. But here's a job. So that brings down the cost of meat. You see this in the construction world as well. Look at road crews, construction crews. Yeah, you have a lot of Hispanics, right? Some of those people are probably here legally, some are not. Okay? Now I tell you who wants more illegal immigration is big business. Big business has no problem with illegal immigration. Why? Because they can pay people less and make more money. One of the problems with illegal immigration that a lot of people don't recognize is how it depresses wages. It doesn't depress wages for me, okay, because I have a college degree, okay? Who it depresses wages for are blue-collar workers, because if you can bring in workers that are willing to work for less money, that brings down wages for everybody in the lower class, mostly Hispanic Americans and African Americans. That's one of those things a lot of people don't talk about. But there are positives. Now, on the other side, guys, listen. If you were living in Nicaragua or Honduras or Guatemala, El Salvador or Mexico, and the place where you lived was unsafe, you couldn't find good job, you couldn't care for your family, you tell me, would you think about coming across the border to the United States if you were living down there? I would. I certainly understand why people want to come here. It's a great place. And if you work your butt off, you can make a good living in this country, even if you don't have an education. You understand that, right? That's why people come here for a better life. So I don't blame anybody for trying to come here. Okay? I get it. Now, it does affect us as a nation in some negative ways. Okay? Economically, in the healthcare industry. If somebody is in this country illegally and they show up at the emergency room with an emergency, they will not be turned away. They will be cared for. Now, if they don't pay their bill and they don't have insurance, then that cost is going to be passed on to everybody else that does have insurance. And the cost of higher premiums, because doctors and hospitals are going to have to charge more to recoup what they lost for caring people that don't have insurance. That drives up healthcare costs for everybody. Education is a big one. The state of Kansas spends around 80% of all of its budget on education and roads. So when you have children that show up at our schools, whether it's Catholic school or the public school, they're not turned away. They don't ask them whether they're citizens. They educate them. Now, if they don't speak native tongue, if they don't speak English, then you're going to have to hire extra staff, teachers, ESOL, different programs. That is expensive. It costs the taxpayers a lot of money. So there are some positives, there are some negatives to illegal immigration. There's other types of immigration that you guys should be aware of because you guys are pretty smart people. And that's H1B. I think it's called H1B, which brings in immigrants for professional jobs, for engineering jobs, for computer engineering jobs, for healthcare, doctors. Because we don't graduate enough Americans from our universities that do these things. So we bring in a lot of Chinese, we should bring in a lot of people from India that are engineers, that take jobs that maybe you may want. Hell, Disneyland was doing this. Okay, firing American workers, hiring foreign workers, paying them less, and making the American workers, before they laid them off, train the new people. Okay, I'm not trying to be xenophobic here. We have the right to decide who comes into the country and who doesn't. And we've always been a nation that's taken people in. We always have. Now, if you want to talk about Trump versus Obama versus Bush versus Clinton, as far as deporting illegal immigrants, I looked it up during lunch just because I want to make sure I wasn't saying some BS. Bill Clinton deported way more people than Trump. Bill Clinton deported way more people than Obama or Bush. W. Bush deported more people than Obama, and Obama deported way more people than Trump. Out of the last 4 presidents, Trump had the fewest deportations of any president, on average per year. Now, his rhetoric wasn't very nice. The way he said things, okay? And yes, he tried to do a travel ban for some Muslim majority nations, fear of terrorism and so forth, okay? His rhetoric was xenophobic. His actions were not nearly, he just didn't deport as many. The focus was on criminal aliens. People that come here illegally and commit crimes, they were the ones that were trying to be deported, okay? Now, there's fewer deportations also because we have something called sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. So if somebody commits a crime in California and they're in this country illegally, what they're supposed to do is notify Immigration Customs Enforcement, ICE, so that when they're done serving their jail term, ICE can come get them and deport them from the country because they are a criminal, okay, and have committed crimes here and they're here illegally, okay? Now, guys, this is a tough issue because we have families. You have families where the mother might be a citizen, the father is illegal, and the kids are here illegally, but maybe the kid was brought across the border as an infant, which the child did not choose to come across the border on their own. They were brought here by a parent, but they're here illegally. So who are we sending home? All right, we're sending home the kid that was an infant, sending him home, we'll send the dad home, and the mom and the other kids will stay here. Are we going to go up and break up millions of families like this? I don't think the majority of either party wants to do that. I don't think we're that heartless. I don't want to do that. Yeah. So this is a tough issue, and it's an issue that we've been dealing with for decades now. It just keeps getting pushed down. Okay. And obviously, guys, things are going to change under Biden. Okay. I don't think we're going to see record deportations under Biden. Okay. In fact, I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we may just have an open border. I don't know what's going to happen. Okay. The wall, Trump ended up building 400 miles. We already had hundreds of miles already of fencing and walls. Guys, it's a fact. Where there is a barrier, it slows down illegal immigration. Do people go around it? Yes. But that's harder to do when you got to go 100 miles out of the way to get across the border because there's a wall there. Can you go under the wall, over the wall? Yes. Does it slow down illegal immigration? Yes. Okay. Now, how do we deal with 11 to 14 million or how many ever that are here if we can never stop the tide from coming in? So some people say, unless you can control the symptom, you're never going to actually deal with the issue. Now, back in the 80s, Ronald Reagan gave amnesty to around 5 million illegal immigrants that had been in the country for a certain length of time and committed no crimes. Okay? I would not be surprised to see Joe Biden do that. Okay? At all. Okay? I don't know how many people he's going to give amnesty to. Okay? But if he starts talking amnesty, it becomes a magnet. So people are going to try and get here before he gives the amnesty. You know what I mean? So I think what we're going to see here is a flood in the next days and weeks. Okay? There's already a caravan down in Honduras making its way through Guatemala of people coming to our border. Okay? We've seen this before. Okay. So, I don't know. Do you think, I mean, it's obviously a tough issue. And I think hopefully you're more educated on it than you were before. And you can think about these are human beings, right? But we're also a country. We also have, we have to have laws. If we don't have laws, we don't enforce our laws, then you see a breakdown. So, I mean, would a wall help us control the border better? Do you want that? Do you want the border control better? I mean, on one side, you can say, man, there's people trying to get into this country that want to do us harm. And that's an easy way in, across the Mexican border. I don't know. You decide. Okay? All right. Hopefully you have more context there. In favor of the death penalty. All right. Now, you guys probably know a lot about this already. So, the church's stance is if somebody commits murder and you cannot contain them safely so that they get out and do it again, you can use the death penalty. But we have something in this country called maximum security prisons, yes? So under that, if you're going with the church's view on this, then you would be opposed to the death penalty. But not everybody agrees with the church on this. Okay, so let's talk about it. So a lot of times this comes down to an argument over economics. Which costs more? To house somebody in a prison, say from 20 years old, life expectancy, 76, so 56 years, you house somebody with guards, which are expensive. You got to feed them 3 times a day. That's expensive. Give them heating and air conditioning, all the stuff you give them for 56 years. That's expensive till they die of natural causes. Okay. Now, if you want to put them to death, then that's going to be expensive too. A lot of death penalty cases, the perpetrator is not wealthy, and they cannot afford their own attorneys. If you cannot afford your own attorney, one will be appointed for you. Yes? That's in the 5th Amendment. And that says, look, they're going to hire a lawyer that knows how to try or do a death penalty case. They're not going to have some slouch just out of law school defend you, because on appeal, you're going to get off. You didn't have adequate representation. Those lawyers they're going to hire are going to be expensive. And the appeals process is long for death penalty cases. So it takes years and years of appeals, which ties up the court system, costs a lot in lawyers' fees and so forth. It's expensive. And if you're on death row, you are on a small population and you need guards, more guards for fewer inmates. That's more expensive. Okay? Now, what's the Supreme Court say? Well, the 8th Amendment to the Constitution says there shall be no cruel and unusual punishment, nor excessive fines or bail. That's the 8th Amendment. Now, in 1791, when they wrote that, they were still hanging people. Okay, so I don't think they meant that cruel and unusual, the death penalty was cruel and unusual. But in 1976, the Supreme Court did say it was cruel and unusual, and we did not have the death penalty in this country for a few years. Subsequently, those were the years where BTK committed all of his murders. This country had no death penalty. But then the Supreme Court changed its mind and said, no, we can have the death penalty. The states will decide. So some states have it, some states don't. Some states have it and use it. Some states have it and haven't used it since it was reinstated. That's Kansas. Kansas has the death penalty, but we have not used it since it's been reinstated. So the Constitution says it's allowed. Okay? The punishment must fit the crime. Now, talk about the moral argument. Should the government be in the business of killing individuals? But then you can talk about the victims' families that may want to see this person gone from the earth so that they never have to worry about this person ever again. I live in a house divided on this one. My wife believes one way, I believe another. Okay. Any guys ever heard of Sister Helen Prejean? Okay. She did prison ministry. She's a Catholic nun. And she wrote a book called Dead Man Walking. She spent a year with a death row inmate in Angola in Louisiana. Wrote a book about her experiences. They made a movie out of it. Both the book and the movie are really good. Okay. Dead Man Walking. And anyhow, you guys heard of the Carr brothers? No? Well, they need to hear about the Carr brothers because they haven't heard about the Carr brothers. I believe it was 2008. Okay, we heard about BTK, right? So, notorious killer. Jonathan Reginald Carr from Dodge City, guy. They came to Wichita back in 2008, and they broke into a duplex, like a little apartment, okay? There were 5 college students in there, okay? And these were good kids. There was some relation to some of the people at Bishop Carroll that knew them, and these are good Christian kids. You know what I mean? They're just hanging out. They're college kids. The Carr brothers, at gunpoint, forced them to the ATM and made them each empty, money out of the bank accounts. Then they took them back to the duplex, the apartment, and where they raped the girls, and then they forced the guys to have sex with the girls. Okay, and from what I understand, they were all virgins. The guys and the girls were all virgins, and so they forced them to, with each other. And then when they were all naked, this is December, they took them out. K96 in Greenwich, where Cabela's is now. There used to not be an exit ramp there. Okay, so you couldn't get off there. Okay, so this is just south of the K96 bridge on Greenwich, facing Cabela's on Greenwich. They had them kneel in the snow on the side of the road. Okay, there was nothing over there, so there's not traffic and stuff. Had them kneel on the side of the road, and they shot them execution style in the back of the head. Each one of them. One of the girls had a hair clip. The bullet ricocheted off her hair clip. She played dead. She was bleeding. They drove off. She got up naked and walked around this. There's a pond over there, some houses, and started banging on doors in the middle of the night. They caught those guys the next morning over by Wichita State at an apartment complex. My buddy, who's a parole officer, was in the jail that day when they brought him in. These guys to this day have showed no remorse. Okay, so they were tried, convicted, and given the death penalty in Kansas. Okay, now the Kansas Supreme Court, about 6 years later, threw out the death penalty on the Carr brothers, saying that they should not have been tried together and sentenced together, because one of the brothers was the ringleader and the other one was followed. Okay, so the Attorney General of Kansas sued the Kansas Supreme Court, and it went to the U.S. Supreme Court. Justice Scalia, rest in peace, who had been a judge for more than 50 years, said in all of his years as a judge, this may have been the worst crime he's ever heard as a judge. And 9-0, the U.S. Supreme Court. That means the liberals sided with, told the Kansas Supreme Court to reinstate the death penalty on the Carr brothers. Now, we haven't killed them yet, okay? And I don't know if we will. I doubt Laura Kelly will, okay? Because the governor can grant clemency or stay or pardons and stuff like that. If there's anybody that deserves it, it would be those. And if you don't think those two deserve it, then you feel strongly about that opinion against the death penalty. I'm okay with that. You stand with the church, stand on your convictions on that, but everybody has their own opinion. Okay? We talked about the economics, the moral, but everybody should be aware of that Carr brothers situation, because that was, it was close to home, man. It's just like 4 miles from my house. Scary stuff. Okay. don't know if you remember, I was talking about a murder in Wichita so my buddy, the parole officer, one of his guys, shot the restaurant owner down there. He was going through some trash, in the back of his restaurant. He's like, "Get out of here, man. Get out," The guy went and got a gun and shot him. He was on parole. I asked my buddy Mike, I said, "Dude, should this guy been out of prison? Or why did they let him out?" He said, "Well, he made parole. They let him out. Now this guy's dead. This restaurant, father, family man." Sad. A lot of people walking the streets of Wichita, guys, that are not good people, that are dangerous people. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just trying to make you aware. Ladies especially, you need to be aware of your surroundings. When you go to Walmart, when you go out in public like that, you're by yourself. You need to pay attention. Who's around you? What's going on? Okay, keep your head on a swivel. Okay, because there's bad actors. All right, I hear about it because these people that were in prison that were let out. Okay, and he used to deal with sex offenders. He did that for like 8 years. He's a parole officer for sex offenders. Nearly killed it. Dealing with these people every day. So he got out of that. Thankfully. Somebody else has got to deal with sex offenders. All right, sorry. How much time we got? 35? Okay. I'm going to start on Social Security real quick, okay? Just get some groundwork laid, basics, okay? Those of you who had me for history last semester, you guys know a little bit about Social Security because we talked about it. So, Social Security was created in 1935. Okay, with the Revenue Act of 1935, and this is to help old people, retired people, get income in their older years, okay? So the retirement age was 65. As I told you guys in the history class, life expectancy was 66 in 1935. So the average member of society would be on Social Security for 1 year, all right? And today, they've changed this, right? The retirement age is now 67 for you and me, okay? And life expectancy is closer to like 78. Women, 80. Men, like 77, somewhere in there. Men live shorter lives because we're stupid and we do dumb things, okay? So this is what it is now. So you're looking at 11 years, 12 years, on average, that people will be on Social Security. Okay, that's the problem. Now, when you guys work, if you're not getting paid cash on the side, when you get work, you pay 6.2% of your income goes to Social Security every month, okay? And then your employer matches that, right? 6.2%. Okay, now, the average recipient of Social Security check, who I will refer to as grandma, okay? Grandma, the average grandma gets $1,300 a month. Some people get more than that. Some people get less than that. The more you've worked, the more money you're going to get when you retire. The less you've worked, say you're a stay-at-home mom, and you only work for 10 years in your life, and the rest you stay at home, your Social Security check's not going to be very big. Now, if your husband dies, you can take his instead of yours. You understand? If you want to be a stay-at-home mom or dad, okay? So like my next door neighbor, Shirley, he's a pediatrician. She was a nurse. They had family, and she just stayed home, never went back to work. Okay, kids are gone. She's still not working. He's a homemaker. All right, nothing wrong with that. All right, but anyhow, that's the average. All right, the other problem that we talked about with Social Security is this. You guys remember this, right? Did I do this in history? You don't remember this? I must have had to go fast or something. That's a graph. 1946 to 65, what was that? After World War II, we had 9 million people in uniform at the end of the war. Those people came home. They got busy. Baby boom. Yeah, baby boom. Okay. Plus, we had refugees from communism. We had refugees from Nazism in Europe. Okay. And so, guys, looks like a pregnant woman. See it? It's a baby boom. All right. So this is a big population of people that are retiring now as we speak, which means there's more people living longer, which means this 6.2% is not going to hold up. So they're saying by 2037, this formula will no longer work. It'll be bankrupt. So you're either going to have to increase the retirement age, cut the benefit, or increase taxes. Are we going to cut grandma's benefit? No, because grandma votes. So does grandpa. So does your great uncle and your great aunt. Okay? They all vote, these old people. Okay? And they're not going to have that. Politicians aren't going to go near that. They call Social Security third rail of politics. You ever go to New York City? Subway? Any guys ridden the subway in New York City? Sometimes people like fall onto the tracks, or people push people onto the tracks of the subway. Oh, I know. Don't touch the third rail. It carries an electrical current. You will fry. If you're a politician and you try and fix, change, reform Social Security, your opponent is going to use that against you and try and scare old people. So your political career will fry. It's called third rail of politics. Don't touch it. So we keep pushing this off. We need to fix this. Okay? Now, in France, this is about 10 years ago, guys. In France, they raised the retirement age from 55 to 60. And there were riots in the streets. Now, old people don't riot. Okay? This was young people saying, we don't want to work till we're 60. We're at 67 over here on this side of the pond. Okay? That good old American work ethic. Okay? We don't go home at lunch and take siestas. All right? We work. A lot of us work through lunch. We don't have 8 weeks of paid vacation like they did. Oh. There are socialists over there. Okay, so the high tax rate. So, everybody pays a lot, and then you get more out of it. Okay? It's really sweet if you're into that sort of thing. Okay? If you're rich in France, you pay 75% in taxes. You keep 25%. Really, what makes you want to get up and put in a 60-hour work week to bust your ass to get rich, so you can pay 75% to the man. Okay. Everybody, each to their own. And look, we're probably trending in that direction. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 4 years, but that's the direction we're going to trend. All right, so I will finish the Social Security. I got a lot to talk about with it, and I will finish that tomorrow. See you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. Most of you.